Welcome back. I'm now joined by Ivor Sarakinsky, Associate Professor at Wits University's School of Governance, and he's here to talk to me about what is going on in our communities as partly a result of the election campaigns that are currently taking place, and what those means or where they fit in with the election campaigns of the different political parties. And Prof, pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks for the invitation.
It seems like we are having a substantial increase of service delivery protests all of a sudden, and we are headed for national elections, and these service delivery protests are localized. Why would that be the case, you think?
It's not uncommon, and we see a pattern going back in time. And as elections come close, whether it's local government or national, provincial, we see these things happening. And communities are clearly mobilizing to put pressure on politicians to respond to the demands and the concerns that they have, and they're bargaining with their vote. If you don't respond to us, then we are going to use our vote in various ways to put even more pressure on you to respond to what we want.
But do they work, really? Do they deliver their desired results? I mean, Alex is an example of this, right? It's been in the state that it's been in for a long time, forever. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was money set aside to rehabilitate Alex, but not much seems to have happened. Well, some parts of Alex were rehabilitated, but not much has happened. And now we have the Alex shutdown protests taking place.
Yes, so there's new issues, new problems, new challenges. And the community, or some members in the community, feel that they're not being dealt with appropriately, and a powerful mechanism is to mobilize the community. It suggests that there's a lot of dissatisfaction, even though it's a small number of people that have come out. And what they're trying to do is get a deal out of all the political parties. So the president will make promises, the mayor will make promises, and once the promise is made, at least you've got something that you can use to hold political leadership accountable for.
Again, you know, I'm not dismissing what's going on within the community, but it's 3 weeks or so to go before the national elections. Elections will come and go, and new people will be elected, and then the train tends to move out of town. It moves on to other things.
Yeah, but the promises made are binding. So the politicians might change, but the promises and the issues remain the same. And that means whoever is in office is going to have to respond to whatever comes out of these meetings and protests.
Now, the way the campaigns are being run at the moment, what is your assessment of the different political parties' approach to winning support from South Africans? And, of course, looking at the immediate challenges that we have that maybe should be addressed, are being addressed, or may not be addressed.
Yeah, the various parties are pursuing quite different strategies, I think. The DA is pursuing a negative campaign in terms of attacking the ANC, and they're hoping that that negative campaign will get traction and swing voters around. And the by-election results are not suggesting that that's what's happening. So, and they might even be losing voters to the right. So it's not clear whether that campaign that negative campaign is working that well. The EFF is playing a populist campaign in terms of we'll do everything for everyone in terms of what they want, coupled to a racial dimension. And it remains to be seen how much traction that gets in terms of their vote numbers at the end of the election. And the ANC is playing, I think, quite a tactical game of being as quiet as possible, showing that they're there, there's a presence, and being quite humble in saying we've learnt our lesson and we'll be better going into the future. So very different tactics and very different identifications of strengths and weaknesses in terms of positioning inside communities.
But which of those three campaigns do you think is more persuasive, or is the most persuasive? I mean, that might sway voters one way or another, given their life situation at this time.
It's very hard to say. In South Africa, this is the first really competitive election where the different parties are in with chances of winning in various levels. So we don't know how negative campaigning is going to work because we haven't seen it at this level of intensity before. So it's quite hard to predict in terms of where the results are going to fall. So a difficult one that. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Well, we mentioned only 3 political parties, right? And 48 are registered to contest the elections. So somebody, an outsider, might say this shows that there are a wide variety of interests in South Africa. Otherwise, people would not be taking the chances they are in contesting the elections. To your mind, what does it tell us about the state of South Africa? Are the 45 other parties that we've not mentioned, what chances do they have of taking away a substantial chunk from the 3 major parties?
In terms of taking support away,
yeah.
I think that I don't see the ANC losing significant support to any of the smaller parties, even the newly formed ones, ATM and ACM and others. I think the smaller parties are a greater threat to the 2 main opposition parties, the EFF and the DA. So the FF, the Freedom Front Plus, in terms of white support going to the right, that's a possibility, and the EFF might even take some support away from potential DA voters in the townships. So there, I think we're going to see some intense conflict over support. COPE will be there. Maybe their numbers won't be as high as in the past. The UDM might increase numbers in terms of the profile of the leader there. And then the other parties will have 1 or 2 members in Parliament, which is a good thing, because you want that diversity in Parliament.
But you know, given what has been going on and in the press at the different commissions, people seem to be very unhappy with specific high-profile individuals, particularly within the ANC. One would have thought that that is a very embarrassing thing for the ANC to contend with in the middle of this election. And, of course, the recent book by Peter Louis Myburgh, The Gangster State, and the story focusing on the Secretary-General, Isma Khashule, of the ANC, that in itself may have an impact on the election, but you don't seem to be convinced of that.
I can't see it dropping the ANC at national level below 50. I think what it might do is influence the closeness to 55, either slightly above or slightly below 55. So I don't think all these revelations are going to have that kind of dramatic effect on the ANC per se. Where the effect might be is the stay away, as we saw in 2016. All these revelations might give us an indication of potential ANC voters who are so dissatisfied that they're not going to vote ANC. But at the same time, the opposition parties haven't been able to persuade them to swing towards them. So the percentage turnout, I think, is going to be one of the big indicators of the impact of all these revelations, as opposed to a new political allegiance coming through.
And we're talking largely about sentiment here, voter sentiment, right? But what is the voters' lived reality? What are the issues that you think the citizens would have liked the political parties to address? You know, at least those that they regard as a priority from your point of view.
Yeah, so we can list those, and they're quite simple. It's education, it's health, it's the economy, it's jobs, it's transport. And the parties could put forward clear manifestos just on those 5 things and hope that citizens would identify and vote for them on that. But if you look at the manifestos, there's all kinds of stuff about BEE and a whole range of issues about land and race and those 5, I think, basic issues are being distorted.
I was about to say something about land, that, you know, the EFF will tell you that, Prof, you've got it all wrong. If there's one issue that has got to be the main issue for the election, is land ownership or expropriation of land. And you seem to suggest that it's not really the main priority for a lot of South Africans.
I'm not sure that it is, in terms of the way it's being cast and framed by the EFF. And we'll see when the votes come out. We'll see whether the EFF is the future government or whether they remain close to double figures, around 10, 11, 12%. So that will be the test of whether they've played that card as effectively as they could have.
A lot of people are saying that these are probably the most contested elections, fiercely contested elections than ever, maybe different to 1994, not because of the size or number of parties, but because of the messaging and the issues that are coming up and the population being too aware and too interested, even if it may stay away. What is your view? What's likely to happen come election day and post-election?
I don't expect there to be any significant violent disruption of the elections. I think South Africans behave well at elections, maybe not so well before elections, but on the election day I think our track record is excellent. I think the IEC is well resourced to manage the election well, so the result will be credible thereafter, which reduces the conflict potential in terms of squabbling over the result. So I think that the election is going to be loud in the build-up, because we're ventilating some serious issues that haven't been resolved for long periods of time. So it's almost therapeutic in terms of how people now are putting issues on the table, ventilating issues. And I think that that's very positive and very healthy. The burden now is for parties and politicians to deal with those issues and those signals in a constructive, positive way to take society forward.
Whoever wins and whatever the margins may be post May the 8th, what kind of South Africa do you think is likely to emerge after the elections?
More or less the same. Maybe just more credibility of those in authority in terms of new mandates and a cleansing process that hopefully will continue to take place, which means government legitimacy, the parties that rule, whether in provinces or national, whoever they may be, will have clearer mandates, better mandates, and an understanding that citizens aren't going to take it anymore. The history of the last 5-10 years has shown us that citizens are becoming quite aggressive, and rightly so, in demanding accountability. So the pressure to perform is going to be much higher, and that's a good thing.
Professor Sarakinsky, thank you very much.
Real pleasure.
For having been my guest on the show. I appreciate. And that is a taste or a sense of what's going on, the dynamics around the elections in South Africa at the moment. And that's all we had for you this morning. Thank you for joining the Modise Network, and be sure to tune in again next week from us. Until next time.